Hello, we are United by Rice, where we talk about all things related to AA, NHPI, and entertainment, creative spaces, and beyond. I'm one of your hosts, Junko.
And I'm Ben, and it's good to talk to you, Junko. It's been actually a little while since we've done a recording. We apologize to all of our regular listeners, but we gave ourselves a little bit of a holiday break slash award
Yeah,
season catch up. So we're
yeah.
here at
And
the
I,
beginning of February.
yes, and actually, I got sick on December 30th. And I
Oh,
was sick till like January 6th anyway.
oh wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I was just kind of like start of the year already behind. I think I feel like I'm just kind of caught up with the things I wanted to do during the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's your last 4 or 5 weeks been?
It's been good. Like I said, the other work that I do related to TV and entertainment is around the awards stuff, right? And it's been a really busy time of the year trying to really kind of keep up with the flow of interesting interviews and opportunities that come my way and attend, selective events. So one of
Yeah.
those events I'm going to attend is the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, which has actually officially kicked off. One of the films debuting at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival on Saturday, February 7th, is a film called California Scenario, starring Will
Yes.
Yun Lee and directed and written by James Takata. So we're excited to welcome them to this episode.
Yeah.
We're one of the first to actually get to talk to them, I think, and they're going to be doing the red carpet work on Saturday.
Exactly. Yep. And then they're also already slated to be at a film festival in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And yeah, and I guess everything will just unfold from there for their film festival run. But yeah, it was a really good conversation, and it's an indie film, and it's one of those like special special indies where both James the director and Will, they were either changing their schedules to accommodate the shooting schedules, calling in favors. It was one of the calling in favors
Hmm.
indie films, so it's quite special to
Sure.
the two folks for sure.
Well, maybe a majority of independent films do end up being made in some form like that, right? You're definitely working with people and asking for people to work below their normal rates, different things like that.
Hmm.
I do think though this one is fairly unique in that Will is he's a recognizable face. I think most people may not know his name, but he's been in lots of shows, lots of films over the years, and has actually got a part in the Odyssey, which we learned.
Yes.
And he snuck this shooting, the shooting of this film, which apparently was done in 10 days,
Yeah.
so that he could still go off and shoot with Christopher Nolan. And
Yep.
so,
Yeah. But
pretty
but even
pretty
that,
good
like,
story.
yeah, yeah, and just but it was so good that you know, especially I guess it'll be revealed how kind of their casting process things didn't come into focus until kind of last minute for this production, but it was a kind that for Will definitely had to ask his family for support to
Hmm.
shoot this, and kind of accommodations had to be made and things like that. But he's an artist though, and his family understood. And yeah, it didn't sound like his family had seen it yet, so hopefully they'll be happy with what they see, and it was worth their family sacrifice.
Hmm. Well, it's I enjoyed it. It's a film that obviously reflects life for a lot of people. It's billed as a romance or a romantic story and a hopeful story, and it certainly has that. But it's kind of done with the
And
echo.
actually,
Uh,
yeah, I was
well,
also going to add, just there's some interesting directing choices that we actually, well, we kind of couldn't get into it because we're one of the first, so
right.
it'll be spoilery. Um,
Yeah.
but there are certain techniques that are used to tell some of the, I guess, some of the more backstory or some of the more
And darker
te-
topics, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I think what we're dealing with is essentially Will plays a character um, uh, named Jacob, who is essentially a single parent to now a college aged daughter.
Yeah.
and then there's another character named Renee who's Jewish. So Will's character is Japanese, even though Will's Korean. His character's Japanese. There's another character named Renee who's Jewish, who similarly is single parenting a daughter, similar age, college age daughter.
I guess just to be specific though, so Will is Japanese American, and she's Jewish American. Just to like
Sorry,
have the context of like where in immigration things happen.
Yeah, this is all happening, I think, in L.A., right? And
yeah, outside of L.A. Where was it? Yeah, outside of L.A.
Yes.
In Southern California.
And so they're essentially divorced single parents, which in itself could be a story. There's a lot of background that's given of their parents or the grandparents, and then of course the lineage that go back to then the atrocities of World War II. Although that's and Takata is very clear that this is not like the center of the film, but it's an echo that you need to know about because it impacts their lives later on, without question. But there are topics like self-harm and other things in there, and I think what Junko's alluding to in terms of some interesting directing techniques, there are moments where the movie uses stylistic flourishes to really bring attention to some topics that clearly are important to the filmmakers, and I think a lot of audiences will find important as well.
Yeah, and I think if it was just regular dialogue, it would probably they're probably sitting on that section, be like, it sounds preachy, it sounds too teachy, like we need to do something with this. So so that was actually kind of a refreshing way to inform. Yeah, it was more the informative stuff.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing though, as we learned, the director, James and Will had not met each other previously and really had to kind of get right into filming. And
yeah, like they didn't see each other till probably
but
day one on set.
Yeah. But I think he gives an amazing performance. He's number one on the call sheet and very deserving. And for folks that don't know his career, his most recent project was The Good Doctor, which was a network TV show. I believe he plays a doctor, not the main doctor. And then before that, he's been on lots of things. He was one of the leads on Altered Carbon, which was a really good Netflix show. He's been in films like The Wolverine. He was a recurring character on Hawaii Five-O, and I didn't watch that show religiously, but I remember his character, which was very much like a side character, got so popular that they basically like wrote him into every episode in some way, shape, or form. He's a very charismatic actor. He is.
Oh, and if anyone's starting to tune into the fact that yes, Ben has a man crush on Will. So
well, a little bit like the interview we did with Lucy Lee. I mean, obviously not at that level, but he's one of those actors that's been around for 20-something years in American television and films, and always been like a core cast member, maybe not the lead. And sometimes
he's
you need to
really interesting choices though, like Altered Carbon. I don't think we've, for example, same with Lucy. I don't think we've seen Will a whole lot as, for example, a first generation immigrant character.
Right.
We haven't seen him, so he has actually been able to like kind of thread his career needle, and similar to Lucy, kind of avoid certain things, kind of
Well, and like you said, when he started acting, there were like 3 or 4 opportunities for Asian actors back then, and I think he's just one of those actors where, if I think about the Asian prominent actors, male leads of that age over the last 20 years, there's not many of them, and yet still not a household name, and that's a little bit of a problem. And so even though this is an independent film, it's nice to see him get a lead role, and I hope to see a lot more of him. And the rest of the cast, the we talk about in the podcast, the young actress that plays his daughter is also fantastic. I didn't realize she's in
that Netflix show, the tween show everyone loved.
Okay.
It's it's those titles with like 6 words in it. Something like me, something. I'm sure someone will finish my sentence.
Well,
I can't
I will
remember which
finish
one
your
it was, but
sentence because I'm looking it up. But
oh,
she
good.
is she is
What
in
was
the
it?
summer I turned pretty.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. I was way off. That's okay. Yeah. So yeah, but that's where people would be familiar with her. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but it was a really interesting conversation. And yeah, it was nice to have James like Takata as I feel like it's been a little while since we've interviewed a director,
Yeah,
but James
yeah,
also and also someone who has worked. He was on he was on the crew for like This Is Us. I think he did
yeah.
Daredevil. He mostly in the TV world, but I don't think we've had anyone who's come out from the TV world
Right.
in a while, actually.
Well, and I think that actually had a lot to do with being able to get the film made, right? Because he has peers that were able to
Yeah.
support him on this project that have that same experience. So, this is as much as a film that needed to be bootstrapped because it's an independent film. It looks good, right? It's got
Yeah,
multiple
yeah.
locations, the
Yeah,
framing
and
of shots.
and
You know,
folks, this is not like a CW like
no,
superhero show. It's definitely an indie. There's an indie quietness to it. I'd almost say Kogo Ganda is another director. He did Cleveland with John Cho, different DP, but I wouldn't say it's not as that film had explored silence and creating really pretty frames and stuff. It's not the framing isn't so intense in California scenario, but James really definitely takes advantage of that indie silence to explore emotion and where the
sure.
characters are at.
Well, you're
So
bringing up something that maybe actually inspires some of the framing. Although, to be honest, I wouldn't have intimate knowledge because I haven't been there. But the whole film is named California Scenario because it's a installation or part of the Noguchi Museum, if I'm correct.
yes,
And I think there's something about the way his art is represented and James' love of his art that influences a lot of the
yeah, oh, and yeah,
cinematographic choices.
yeah, and just to back up, and another element that's interweaved into the story is Isamu Noguchi, one of the earlier Japanese Americans, who was, yeah, he ended up being an artist, but he had his hand in many, many things from, I think, like medicine to art. So that was someone that James really, really liked as a historical figure. So that's how that's woven in, trying to also I guess answer the constant question. Especially because James is, I guess he's like fourth, fifth generation
Yeah.
Japanese American of finding your identity and thinking about when Isamu Noguchi was alive, which is I think the turn of the century. What kind of thoughts that he was going through as well. So that's a little bit of an exploration James gets to do in this film too.
Well, I think we can wrap up
Yeah.
our discussion about the film with kind of that sentiment, right? And at the end of the day, I'm somewhat amazed that Will and some of the other actors were able to memorize all of their dialogue in such a short amount of time. Because I think, as we've been explaining with the film, there's so many themes, and so much of it comes through the exposition. And Will has to play the divorced dad who's also grieving but worried about his daughter, but as an artist, there's just a lot going on. And sometimes films like this don't get seen and actors don't get the recognition they deserve, or the directors, but this is a really, really fine performance. I'd love to pivot. There's been a little bit of time since we've last chatted. Oscar nominations. Is that something that you
Yeah.
saw and have an opinion about? Any surprises or any disappointments?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was disappointed that Kokuho wasn't nominated for under international, but I was a little surprised, I guess, that No Good Deed, right, out of Korea. Oh no, is
No
that the
other
right?
choice. No other choice.
No other choice. No
Yeah.
other choice out of Korea also was shut out too.
Well, I think in many ways that was going to be my take. It was more or less an Asian shutout, right? Because Rental Family, Left Hand Girl,
Yeah, I mean,
No Other
Rental Family, I'm not
Choice.
that no. Yeah, Rental Family, I'm not that surprised because they're definitely like the Spirit Awards. They're doing a. I feel like they're doing more of an indie track.
Mm,
Maybe they were looking at maybe best screenplay
yeah,
for Rental Family, but
but none of
I
them.
think they're most of the
No,
focus has been on the
yeah,
indie side.
but no nominations across the board for any of those Asian films. And
Right.
I think the
Well,
No Other Choice one,
although Kokoho is nominated for best hair and makeup, better
yeah,
than nothing. But
which is random, pretty random. Um, but No Other Choice, there's that one's very puzzling, right? Because I think, and I don't know if that's a timing thing or if the Academy, I don't speak to people that are part of the Academy very often, but if they just have something against Park Chan-wook, but he's clearly like he's not been recognized, period, right, by them. He's never been nominated
right,
for any of
right.
his films. And I think this one, in fact, maybe it's a timing thing. Maybe it came out too recent. I'm not enough in the know of how they campaign or whatnot, but you talk to most critics, it's on their top 10 list.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
for it to not even break into the best foreign film category,
yeah, yeah.
I was pretty shocked.
Because they were shortlisted though, I believe, right? In
They were
December.
shortlisted. They were, yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah,
was
yeah.
Lee Byung-hun, and so was Park Chan-wook. So they were all shortlisted. But so
Yeah,
tough one.
yeah,
The Asian representation will again come from K-pop Demon Hunters. So
yeah, yeah.
the team that will more or less sweep the awards, I believe, in the animation and best song
Yeah. The song.
categories.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then maybe best original song as
Well, I
well.
think it's best original song or
Original
score,
song
and I don't think
or
they're
score.
nominated
Okay.
for score. I think it's just song.
Just song. Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, and I may
yeah.
have mentioned this before on the podcast, but they submitted Golden only. So, and maybe that was
Yeah.
the perfect strategy to make sure that they win.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all strategy.
Yeah, you may know that Wicked for Good had submitted two of their songs,
Yeah.
and neither got
There's none.
nominated.
That was surprise. That was a surprise. Wicked was shut out.
Yeah, so let's speak to John Chu a little bit, right? Because I think, look, I don't know if you saw the film, but
Yeah, I did. I did.
it wasn't
Yeah.
great, right? It wasn't a great film.
Yeah, it was a part two. I mean, it's not a surprise. Usually, part two movies don't do that great, like compared to
Sure.
the part ones.
Yeah. Well,
Just, yeah.
but I think people thought it would be good enough to then say, okay, we can at least acknowledge a lot of the talent, the Ariana Grande's, Cynthia Erivo's, maybe not with a win, but at least a nomination, some of the craft awards for sure, and then John Chu
Yeah.
as a director. I mean, you
Yeah.
still, to bring a beloved musical to the screen,
Yeah.
you remember he was not nominated for Wicked, the first movie either, and that movie
Right.
was much better. Definitely, Best Picture nominated. All the actors were nominated. He
Yeah.
still wasn't nominated. So,
Yeah.
I think again for the Asians, kind of a tough beat. Going into the Oscars.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I definitely agree. Yes. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more as we get closer.
yeah,
We're only
yeah.
at the beginning of February. Yeah, I'm planning to go see Hamnet on Monday here at a screening. Yeah, I'm kind of chiseling away at all the actor award stuff too.
Will there
So,
be any talent on hand, or like any Q&A afterwards?
let's see, Hamnet. I think Chloe's gonna be there. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And some other people.
Oh yeah, I guess we can't say all. I guess we can't say the Asians were shut out completely. Chloe Zhao was nominated and very well deserved.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
and she gave a
she
great
might-
speech at the Golden Globes.
Yeah, I think between her and Golden will pretty much be the Asian standout moments this season, right? Golden and Chloe.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
any
think,
Asians at Oscars.
yeah. Well, as far as nominees, I'm trying to think if.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Chloe will probably win the Oscar. I wouldn't predict her to win. But you never know. The things always go different
Yeah,
ways.
I
It's a pretty
haven't seen
close
Hamnet
race.
yet, so yeah. I haven't seen a couple of the other nominated ones too. So yeah. Well,
I will
anyway.
say this. I will say this about Hamnet, and those that follow my Instagram saw me write about this, which is the ending is beautiful. You know,
Right.
the first half felt very, period PC, tragic, you know, didn't really grab
Shakespeare.
me, but somehow it was doing its thing to me because then it set up an ending that it for whoever conceived of the visual pull through of the ending, and I think there's some not rumor or talk, but I think confirmation that some of it was improv by Jesse Buckley as well. But then you still have to like, okay, yeah, that's right. Let's do that. Let's pull that through. Let's shoot it this way. Like between Chloe Zhao and the cinematographer and Jesse Buckley, it is a beautiful ending. I won't spoil it for you, but anybody listening to this who's seen it knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that is beauty. That is art. And I could give her the award. I think Jesse Buckley will get the award for that. I could give Chloe Zhao the award for that too. But I think Paul Thomas
Okay.
Anderson, Ryan Coogler, that's some pretty tough competition too.
Yeah. But she had a great speech with in regards to Ryan
Yeah,
as well at the Globe. So yeah,
yeah, yeah,
let's see how
yeah,
this. We'll see how the race goes this year.
yeah, for sure. Well, with all that said, we will get this episode up quickly because we want to make sure we highlight Will-Yan Lee and James Takata, and we want to thank them for joining. It was a very last minute scheduling and right before their world premiere, so congrats to them. As always, you can follow us on United by Rice Podcast on Instagram and subscribe to our podcast here on YouTube, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, and other places where podcasts are heard.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, here is Will and James.
And we are back. We're here with James Takata, the director of California Snare and lead actor, and well, I believe you also produced. You have a couple credits.
Yeah, here and there.
Yeah, William Lee. Thank you very much both for taking your time out from your busy schedules to join us at United by Rice.
Yeah, we're very excited to talk to you. And I'll take a moment here to mancrush. We've been watching you for so long, on so many great shows and movies, and I remember back in the day watching. Maybe it's not the most popular Wolverine film, but the Wolverine and the character that you play in it, and I was like, that guy kicks ass. And then I remember like connecting the dots on IMDb. Wait, that's the guy on Hawaii Five-0. It's like this guy it should be a big star. So really glad to talk to you and see how your career continues to progress. But obviously this is a very different project. So I'd love to maybe just start with how you got involved with this project.
Yeah, and I have a feeling, James, that you had already crossed paths with Will, maybe before coming upon this project, by any chance?
This was the first time that we met and the first time we worked together.
Nice.
But I'll let Will answer the question of how it came to him.
Yeah, it was serendipity in a lot of ways. I mean, we have a mutual friend, and she sends me this just kind of like vague text. I need you to read this, and you need to give me an answer by Sunday. It was Friday, because I think we're gonna start like pre-production or we're shooting on Thursday, and so it was Friday, and I read the script that night. Just because I know my friend's taste is very, 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 very high because she's read one of my scripts and said it was good, but so she is an amazing person. She sends me this script and I read it that night, and before I finished reading it, I just texted her. I said yes, and I said, when does it start shooting? And she's like, in a couple days. And I said, there's a whole lot of dialogue. I mean, I literally started memorizing that Friday before before I met James or anything. As I said, I at least need to digest this. And you know, and James knows this. You know, I'd come off of 7 years of the show called The Good Doctor,
Mhm.
and you know, I love my time on that show. You know, it was a network procedural, super, just a great show to be a part of. But what I did miss was,
Stability for 7 years.
yes, yes, and the favorite part was my wife always said she always knows where I was. So,
Oh,
um,
that's great. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you know why? You know, I came into this business at the end of 1997, and you know, it was obviously a time for especially Asian Americans in general. It was just, you know, there was 3 or 4 jobs a year total
Mhm.
between men and women that you had to get at least two of them to put food on the table. And but at that time, you know, while I was, you know, dirt broke, you know, doing 14 different jobs, you know, I got to do a lot of independent filmmaking and films that I just truly loved. You're sitting on the floor eating out of, like, you know, paper plates and the whole deal, and it's all just about the craft and the love of storytelling. And so when I read this script, it literally brought me back to like early 2000s, and I was like, this is exactly why I moved here, to tell stories like this, to be part of a story like this. And I remember my first movie at Sundance was called What's Cooking with Gorinda Chadha. And she said part of the reason she made that movie was she wanted to take all the marginalized characters who lived on the edges of the screen and put them in the center. And when I read this script, I was like, this is beautiful. This is the stuff you chase. You know, I chased for 30 years to be able to live at the center and tell human stories as opposed to just killing James Bond or, you know, dying at the hands of the Wolverine. Like, where the dialogue is what it is, but this was just real and
Mhm.
gritty and heartfelt. And so I, you know, I didn't even hesitate. And I know James and I were supposed to meet, but I knew the answer was yes. And then when we met, it was an extra yes. And we just went off and running and shot this thing in like 9 or 10 days. It was
Oh, nice.
insane.
Mm. And James, you know, there's so many themes or so many big topics in this film. You've got, you know, as we touched upon in our greeting before we started recording, obviously it's a film about divorce, it's about generational trauma. There's purposefully a Jewish family and a Japanese family, so we have the echoes of the terrible time of concentration camps and internment. But what really drew you to write this story and to direct this film? What is there a particular personal, um, element of this film that's most close to home to you?
Well, it is very personal, and as you said, and I know we talk. I know it's the term people throw around internment, but these days I'm like switching to incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like it's this euphemism that people that we said that made it a little more palatable. Like so, it's just a switch for me. I've said
I
internment
actually,
recently.
yeah, I've actually started leaning into, depending on my audience,
Yeah.
concentration camp.
Yeah, that too.
Depending on who
That's
I'm talking
really
to.
what
Yeah.
that's what they were. You're concentrating a group of people in in a prison. So yes, I mean obviously there's major differences between what was happening in Europe with the Jews and what happened in America with the Japanese Americans, but they're both concentration camps. So we'll just say that.
Yeah.
And that is my family history. My mom was born in camp. My dad was very young, and you know we live with sort of the echoes of that still, even though, you know, when I was growing up and I'd hear the stories about kind of around the dinner table, just, oh yeah, well, remember that? Yeah. Was that at camp? Yeah. And as a kid, you think, well, what camp? Like, was everybody at summer camp together? Like, that sounds fun because all the cousins were there and the aunties and the grandparents. And then it wasn't until later I learned, oh, that was internment. That was this concentration camp situation. And like my uncle was born in a horse stall at Santa Anita when they were gathering people to then like take them to all the different camps. And I feel like there was sort of this bow wrapped around that experience because of reparations.
Mm-hmm.
We the survivors of the camps all got reparations in the late 80s. And so it was like, see, we went through that tough thing, but there's sort of like there's justice and there's sort of this happy ending, and it's like this thing that happened. And anyway, moving on.
Hmm.
But as it turns out, um, those echoes persist and in ways that we don't always understand, and I think that's what you see in this movie, in like the relationship between Jacob and Lexi. And as you've seen, half the movie takes place in Isamu Noguchi's installation in Costa Mesa, and Noguchi was he was biracial. He was Japanese American. He was somebody who, as an artist, was constantly sort of exploring and struggling with his identity as like this person who was not quite home in America and not quite home in Japan, and he lived in both places, and he lived all over the world. And he voluntarily went to Poston to, he had this idea to try to create some sort of utopia. He quickly figured out that that wasn't going to happen, and then was trying to get out. But placing it in, being able to place it in his installation, California Scenario, was also very meaningful.
Hmm. And hence the name of the film. The character Lexi, I think, drops a line that I think will be one of the most memorable lines about, why do you call it, camp instead of jail, right? And I think that brings the point home very, very well. Will, your character plays your performance is amazing in the film. It's very nuanced, layered, and, playing a divorced dad, raising a daughter, but essentially taking, you bring up something that is very complex in divorces, right? Which is the impact that it has on children, but then what that impact on children has back on the parent that they may not have, even predicted or foreseen. How did you even get yourself in the mind space to play this type of role? Did you draw from any personal experiences yourselves?
I mean, one, I didn't have a lot of time, but at the same time, like, I came from a broken family. And so a lot of time, many years I just spent alone with my dad in a motel in Hawaii, and just, him scraping by as a taxi driver. And, looking back through the eyes of, a 7-year-old, you know, luckily we're in the generation where we have the fortune to explain things to our kids and guide them through their emotions and feelings. He was just trying to survive. And so I think with this story, there was a lot of that, and where he just lived his life as this photographer who's, moving around life and not really aware of all those things that his daughter's going through until the moment hits and he has to deal with it. And like you said, it's the repercussions of that and letting time fly by till one day you actually, and as Asians, we know this, we don't say much, or our parents never said much to us, but eventually it hits a wall somewhere. And usually for us Asians in our generation, it happens around freshman year of college, where we're all throwing up on the floor from partying too hard because we've been hiding and leading these double lives. But, I mean, going back to the internment camps and all that stuff, to me, I think the beauty of this movie is that some of the hardest movies to watch, I think, for a general audience has been like, where it feels like it's on a soapbox. And I think where this really finds, and James really kind of threaded the needle, is that we understand this world, and through the eyes of Lexi, we get to live it through her eyes. But at the same time, it's a story about real people and emotions, so that you don't feel like anything's being preached to you. It just feels like, entertaining at times, but it's at the same time, just, we never see these characters on screen having these real life discussions, and discussions that could just be about like, why did you go out with your friends? Like ours, for so long, our stories have been invisible. And so just to see human life as an American, was really refreshing.
Now, as far as the script goes, where did the element of Isamu or Noji come into play? It could have been anyone else, it could have been a few other options.
Yeah, well, I've been inspired by his art for a couple decades now, and the more that I learned about him, like the more I was interested. I've wanted to make a movie about his life for a while, and when Darren and I were talking about it, and his life is so vast. I mean, he's lived in all these different places, created art in different places, and it's so varied from the tables and the lamps he's so famous from, for to like sets for Martha Graham, to collaborations with Buckminster Fuller on like the more scientific end, or it's like he's been in so many places and interacted with so many different people. That movie is like it spans 80 plus years and is probably going to be like a $200 million thing.
Right.
How do we do this on an independent scale? And I had been to California Scenario before, but it was actually Dara's idea to say, how do we scale this back and do it here? And so we started lobbying the Irvine Foundation, like, hey, can we do this? We talked to the Noguchi Foundation. They were like, hey, that's a great idea. We don't actually have the control of that. You have to talk to the Irvine Foundation. And then it took about 6 months of us sort of like pestering them and trying to get them to say yes, until they finally gave us like 4 days in February, and we're like, okay, now we gotta go. Now we gotta go do this.
Yeah. So, so Will, you obviously had read the script on a Friday. You know that you're on set on Thursday, and I'm gonna guess probably Noguchi is not someone that you had maybe come across. Maybe
No.
the Japanese American themes, sure, but Noguchi. So, was it a lot of conversation with James? Like, where did you shove all that information in your head in like under 6 days?
I mean, I got to experience it like almost everybody on set, like as it was happening. But I mean, just the way that I attacked the script was, it was one of those things you didn't really need to attack. You just needed to say the words, and the feelings kind of followed those words. Um, it really was that easy, in the sense that it was so well written that there wasn't a lot of homework for me to do. It was just to listen to the other person and just, have a sense of who you are. Like, trying to place myself into my dad's shoes of being a single dad, and navigating life. You're kind of a kid again when you lose your wife, and you're like, what do I do with this little thing that's sitting next to me, and I got to feed and guide, and so I mean, that was kind of essentially it.
Yeah. So would you say, gosh, I mean, was that script pretty much baked on day one of shooting, or were there like tweaks that you guys would discuss a little bit?
I mean, at least for my part, I mean, I just got to say the words. I mean, there were
Yeah.
really, you rarely come across, especially in independent film, where, you just have to show up and be present.
That's awesome.
I mean, I
You
think
know,
part of the reason that it was that way, Dara's a very accomplished writer. We both come from a lot of television, so we have this like this sort of door to indie film through a lot of experience in television. Like I directed an episode of This Is Us where I was for 6 seasons, and like I just did a Criminal Minds, and so like I know that side, just like Will did Good Doctor. And just to sort of go back to that beginning question, like everybody's very familiar with Will's roles on like The Good Doctor and Hawaii Five-O and Altered Carbon. And for me, one of the most exciting things about this, speaking of centering, is to be able to put him as number one on the call sheet, like where he deserves to be.
Sweet.
yeah.
Thank you.
Well, and again, I started the episode with my man crush feelings. I've always long felt that, and we still live in this world where we've all heard this. When you ask white people name two famous Asian actors, they still say Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, right? So we need that number one call sheet spot. There's the cast is wonderful, but we'll focus here because we have the both of you. Millie, who plays your daughter, the two of you have amazing on-screen chemistry, and the fact that you probably didn't have any time to rehearse. What was it like working with her? Because my understanding is this is her first film.
It's her first feature.
Oh,
Yeah.
and actually, yeah, how'd you find her as well? Let's add that too.
So we got connected to Minnie through Dara's agency. Like they have the same agents. It was again like this project came up so quickly because we got the permission late and then we're like scrambling to put the whole thing together. It was so nerve-wracking getting closer and closer to the date and having many roles uncast. And Derek kept saying to me, once they're cast, you're not going to be able to imagine anybody else in that role. They're going to be perfect, and that is definitely the case with both Will and Minnie, who came to us very late in the game. Um,
Nice.
but I'll let Will talk about that experience of working with Minnie as his daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, she just, I mean, chemistry is always a hard thing to verbalize or put on paper. It's just is what it is, and she's just so sweet, and she's lived. We got to share stories in between takes, and she went through some stuff, and it shows up on screen. And I always say, like, the beauty of art. And I was having this conversation with my son the other day because he was down on himself about something, and I was like, the cool thing about what we've chosen to do in life, I said, all the people that are super interesting went through a lot of shit. And so all the ugly stuff, the messiness and all that stuff will turn into beautiful colors. And I go, you just have to wait. And so I sense whatever I got gleaned from our small conversations, I was like, she's gone through some stuff, and you can see it behind her eyes when you're talking to her. But out of all that, the coolest story is, I'm at this event for a bunch of kids, and somebody brings up The Summer I Turned Pretty, and they're like, so and so, and I FaceTimed her, and I was like the superstar hero of all these 12-year-old girls who were just dying that she was on FaceTime with them.
Oh, that's
It's so
funny.
funny.
Had you seen that show? Had either of you seen that show? I knew it was, it was a big buzz, but I mean, we're clearly not the demographic.
Both of my daughters were binging that. Like,
Oh, that's okay. Okay, so you're familiar with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Like as like us, we're
My
not the
my wife
demographic.
and my son were like, they were in the binge mode, and they're
Ooh.
obsessed.
Oh,
So they're
hey,
so
okay.
excited to meet Minnie when we go there
Oh,
in 2
nice.
days. Yeah.
Oh, great. Great.
Well, you've
We should get
alluded
her on this
to.
podcast with you guys.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
We will. We
Yeah,
should.
I think,
Yes.
future guest.
Yeah. Well, you alluded to kind of the late nature of casting. Can you just talk about what it took to get this film made? I know as I scroll through the Instagram post, for instance, there was a GoFundMe effort at one point in time. Not the GoFundMe site, but a different effort for.
Eden Spark.
Yeah. So talk about the journey.
Yes. It's kind of, the whole thing is a miracle. I mean, it's February 5th, 2026 right now. We were shooting this movie a year ago. Like, we were in the middle of production. And now we're world premiering at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival this weekend. Like, the best answer I can give you is love. I mean, it was just held together by so much love. I'm really getting a little choked up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what indies do.
We called in so many friends and favors, and it was so low budget, right? We shot this thing in 10 days. It was like at my house, at Dara's house, at my aunt's house, at my mom's condo, and then California scenario, but it took so many people showing up for the love, for the love of the script, for the love of each other, it's these relationships, these people that we've all worked together. Many of the cast were people that I had worked with before, or Dara had worked with before. Will and Minnie are exceptions here, but James Saito and I had worked together on The Company You Keep, and to be able to call on those old friends and be like, hey, we're making this thing, will you come do it? And then people actually coming and doing it. So I'd say there's so much that went into doing that, right? And you mentioned the Seed and Spark. So half of this movie was crowdfunded. I'd say so much of it was just donated, right? Like we got a camera package from Panavision. So many people gave their talent and their time, both in the production end and in the post production end, to make this film happen. And so, yeah, it's love and belief and like just like not quitting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, well, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
just I mean for your audience, like, just to kind of put it out there, like an episode of television is, between 7 and 9 days usually on a network show. And to do an entire movie in 10 days, my wife is like, how are you going to shoot a movie in like 9, 10 days? I have no idea. What are you going to go shoot? And I said, I don't know, it's this movie. It's awesome. And then when I got there and you realize that the family that James and Dara had built throughout their career, and it shows that, kindness matters because it will pay forward at some point. And you realize the hair person, the wardrobe person, like the camera person, everyone's come from a high end background. They're doing it for the love of storytelling because, they'll go make, 20 times the amount of money in, a day's work than they're going to ever make on this movie. And it just goes to show you that it was love because it was all their friends and they were like the best of the best going in there, shooting the thing. It was just like, wow, like it feels like it's a student film in terms of like how many days we got and we're sitting on fold out chairs. But like when you see the end product, you're like, wow, these were like a bunch of professionals just, in the most humble way showing off like, we got this. We can shoot a whole movie in 10 days.
It was like all the best parts of a student film. I mean, for Darren, I was like, oh, this feels like a student film again, but everybody knows what they're doing. So, like Will was saying, Yasu Tanida, who was the cinematographer, like he and I worked together on This Is Us. He's a very accomplished DP, and he came and did that. Our production designer, Helen Jun, was also on This Is Us with me. Like, there were a lot of very talented professionals who they just came and did it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like a inexpensive production. You got multiple locations. It looks really wonderful, and I think it's a testimony to not just the family that you've built around you, but obviously the story that people can relate to.
Yeah, and I guess it's a question for both of you guys with indies. Now, at least in my experience, the call in the favors indie projects only really comes in once every 5 to 7 years because after that time, people have forgotten you asked the last time. What is it? What was it about California scenario for James, that you were like, oh, this is the call in favors one? And Will, what was about the script, I guess, that you were like, you said yes, and pretty much, I'm going to assume you changed your schedule around to start working in 6 days. And you also had to tell your family, like, hey, I'm going to go work within a week.
Yeah.
So these indies are the special. What is that special something for you all to change your lives and say yes? Or
it always starts with the script because you don't meet the faces yet. And, for me, it was a big sacrifice because I was about to go shoot The Odyssey. And that the movie was, 6 months away from my family. And they were in such faraway locations. My wife is like, are you sure it's that good? Because that means, 5 days extra you could have been with us. And I said, I think this is special. And she's like, well, then go do it. You have to go do it.
Yeah.
Will literally wrapped and then got in a car to go to the airport to go to the Odyssey.
Yep.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's
Well,
amazing.
that's exciting. At least just starting to get some buzz right now. They're starting that very, very early marketing little buzz for the Odyssey.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
Sure.
Oh, we're looking forward to that.
Well, your film premieres.
Yeah.
Your film premieres on Saturday night at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. Can you tell our viewers a little bit more about, if they're not in Santa Barbara, when they may expect, to see it, what the distribution goals are for this film down the road?
Yeah. So this will be our world premiere. We did a cast and crew screening at the Japanese American Culture and Community Center at the end of last year, which was incredibly special to be in that space and with just right next to another Noguchi installation. But this is our world premiere. It's the first time the public will see the movie. We're going to be at the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival in two weeks. So that's like, I think the February 20th. We've got a couple screenings there, and we'll have will be there, Brooklyn will be there, Abby Miller, and a couple of other of our cast. And then after that, more festivals to come, and we'll see where we can get distribution so more and more people can see this. But it's sort of wide open right now.
Sure. And then I'm going to give you a chance here. The log line, when I read it, it basically just says James and Renee, or Jacob and Renee meet, at the art installation, and kind of go, good stuff happens. It's very simple. You don't hear all the other backstory. And I'm curious, is that deliberate, or are you, yeah.
It's a difficult movie. You've seen it now. It's a difficult movie to categorize. We touch on so many, like we said, Japanese American incarceration, mental health, divorce, all art, all of these different things that you could say that the movie's about. Isamu Noguchi. And so the best way I could say it now is it's a coming of middle-aged love story about two single parents, one Japanese American, one Jewish American, who are, and their kids have a crisis. They're struggling to help them under the weight of shared and different intergenerational traumas. And in the end, it is a hopeful thing. It's sort of a prelude to their love story, but this movie is really about their love for their kids.
And like a lot
we're preparing you for your festival run, right? You're gonna have to do that, except tight.
Yes. If you have any suggestions of how to make that tighter, I'll take it.
But
at the end of the day, James, you've mentioned a lot of things that you're like, whoa, internment camp, art, divorce. I mean, at the end of the day, when I finished watching it at the screening, we were all kind of like a little teary-eyed because we'd never seen it. And I was like, ultimately, it's a story about hope. It really was. It was a beautiful way to do it. And it I don't know. We're lacking those movies. And so I felt like this is a really special one.
I agree.
It opens and closes with a similar scene, if not the same scene. And I think like a lot of good love movies or romantic movies, it's not so much about the two main characters sharing a lot of scenes, but it's about kind of the build up and what gets them there and what can come next. And it is very poetically done against a really meaningful backdrop behind it. Junko,
can you come with us to summarize? That was a great, little bit.
If you need moderators, we're happy to come out there. I'll be there on the red carpet. I plan to be on the red carpet on the 7th, so I should see you there.
Oh, you're going to be there. Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yay.
Junko, you want to take us,
guys?
Yes. So, So, in the tradition of United by Rice, we always close out with the same question. So, the second person who'll be answering the question gets to think about their answer. Okay, I guess I'll throw it at James. James, in our tradition, what is your favorite rice dish?
I love a good just Japanese curry and rice, like katsu curry. Yeah, that's my go-to.
Nice. Yay. Will?
Mine is my college kimchi fried rice with Spam.
What's the college touch?
The college touch was just poor kids, and you're just like, this is what we used to make when our parents were gone. And you throw in a bunch of rice, kimchi, and cut up some Spam, cook it with some sesame oil, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. Fried rice, by the way, fried rice and egg, and then some other, protein has been the most common answer to that question. So
I think we need a future intern to actually pull the stats.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to both of you. Look forward to bigger audiences seeing this film, and it really is a very beautiful piece. And it's been our pleasure to get to talk to you today.
Thank you, guys. And thank you for shining a light on the film. It means a lot.
Thank you.
See you on Saturday.